True war encounters. Full story. The fog comes in like a betrayal. November 1967, Hill Country 15 clicks west of Da Nang, and Staff Sergeant Carlos Norman Hathcock wakes at Wo 4:15 to find the world erased. He sits up in his shallow scrape overlooking the Song Kuda Valley and watches white nothing swallow the trees below him. Visibility drops from 200 meters to 50 to 10 in 20 minutes. By 04:30, he can barely see his own boots. Cold judgment lies across his knees. That's what the Marines call it, though Hathcock never named his rifle himself. Someone else did after Hill 55, after he dropped a VC officer at 100 yards in 30-knot wind with a single shot. The rifle is a Remington Model 700 that doesn't look like any other 700 in country. Free-floated barrel, custom trigger job that breaks at exactly 2 pounds, 4 ounces. An Ertl 10X scope that cost more than 3 months of Hathcock's pay. Mounted with handmade rings, the armorer in Da Nang machined specifically for this rifle. The stock has 7 notches cut in a place nobody sees. Hathcock knows what each one represents. He doesn't talk about them. The radio crackles at 0445. Static, then a voice tight with controlled panic. Foxtrot 6, this is Echo 2-1. We are combat ineffective, have wounded, cannot navigate out, enemy contact imminent. Then nothing. Just static. Lance Corporal Burke, Hathcock's spotter, crawls over from his position 20 meters away. He's 19 years old and has been in country for 4 months. Gunny, you hear that? I heard it. 9 men. Lieutenant Vasquez's patrol. They went north yesterday to check that village near the French bunker ruins. Hathcock studies the fog through his scope. The glass shows nothing but grey cotton. He can't even see the valley floor 300 meters below. Burke watches him with the expression Marines get when they know something insane is about to happen. Command says wait for visibility, Burke says. Hathcock stands up. He pulls a map from his ruck and spreads it on the ground, shielding it from condensation with his poncho. Red lens flashlight. He traces contour lines with one finger. 7 months in this valley. Every ravine, every rock formation, every game trail the NVA use at night. If Echo followed doctrine, they'd be in the northeast corner of Grid Square Tango Victor 834, near those old bunker ruins. And the NVA approach routes, he knows those too. 3 of them, all from the west. Gunny, Burke says carefully. You can't shoot what you can't see. Hathcock folds the map. He checks Cold Judgment's chamber, already loaded. Federal match, €30.06, 168-grain boat-tail hollow point. He pulls 3 20-round boxes from his pack and slides them into his cargo pockets. 60 rounds. He thinks about it, then takes 3 more boxes. Burke is still staring. I'm not planning to see them, Hathcock says. The logic is simple and terrifying. Visibility doesn't matter if you know the terrain by memory and can shoot by sound. Hathcock has made shots at 1,000 yards, 200 yards, shots that required calculating wind drift and bullet drop to the inch. But he's never fired blind. Nobody has. The entire concept of precision marksmanship depends on visual acquisition of the target. You see the enemy, you measure the range, you adjust for conditions, you fire. Without that first step, the whole system collapses. Except Hathcock isn't thinking about systems. He's thinking about 9 Marines who are going to die if someone doesn't reach them in the next hour. He shoulders his rifle and starts walking downhill into the fog. Burke follows, because that's what spotters do, even when the sniper has clearly lost his mind. The fog swallows them in seconds. Navigation by compass and pace count. 2,000 meters northeast, absolute silence, except for water dripping from trees and their own careful footsteps. The fog muffles everything, but somehow amplifies small sounds. A branch breaking sounds like a gunshot. Hathcock walks with Cold Judgment at low ready, finger off the trigger, safety on. He's counting steps, visualizing the terrain from memory. Rock outcrop at 1,500 meters, creek bed at 1,800, Dense bamboo at 1900. He adjusts his bearing slightly east. At 0530, still 200 meters from where he estimates the French bunker ruins should be, he stops. Burke almost walks into him. Hathcock raises one hand. Freeze. Then he hears it. Voices. Vietnamese. North Vietnamese. Not southern dialect. Hathcock's Vietnamese is limited but functional. He's listened to enough captured radio traffic to recognize the accent, the cadence. These are regular NVA, not Viet Cong, and they're close. Maybe 30 meters ahead, maybe less. 4 voices, maybe 5. Speaking quietly but not whispering, coordinating. Burke's eyes go wide. Hathcock kneels slowly, brings cold judgment up, clicks the safety off with his thumb. The inertial scope is useless. Just grey fog. He closes his eyes and listens. One voice, slightly louder than the others, giving orders, an officer or NCO. The voice echoes slightly off something, probably the ridge line to the north. Hathcock opens his eyes and raises the rifle, settling the crosshairs on where that voice has to be. 35 meters, he estimates, no wind to speak of inside the fog. Bullet drop at that range is negligible. He exhales halfway and holds it. Cold judgment fires. The fog muffles the crack, but doesn't hide it. A body falls. Hathcock hears it hit the ground, hears the distinctive sound of equipment clattering. 3 seconds of shocked silence, then chaos. The other NVA spray automatic fire blindly into the fog, emptying entire magazines at ghosts. Hathcock and Burke are already moving, flanking 15 meters south, fast and low. The enemy reloads. Hathcock can hear fresh magazines slapping into AK-47s, the distinctive metallic snap. He fires twice more, both times shooting at sound alone. Both times, solid hits. The third NVA runs. Hathcock hears him crashing through underbrush, panicked, heading west. He lets him go. They push forward carefully. 3 bodies. Burke is shaking, breathing hard through his nose. "You just shot blind," he whispers. Hathcock checks the first man. Officer insignia, map case, radio. He takes both, slinging the radio across his back. "Wasn't blind," he says quietly. "Knew where he had to be. The NVA radio changes everything." Hathcock understands maybe 1 word in 10, but he doesn't need fluency. He needs to know where the enemy thinks they are and what they're doing. He listens for 3 minutes, crouched beside the bodies, while Burke provides security. Multiple units are converging on this area. They're hunting for an American patrol, Echo 2-1. The net is tightening. Hathcock finds high ground 50 meters east, a rocky outcrop he remembers from patrols 3 months ago. Good fields of fire if you could see anything which you can't. He sets cold judgment on its bipod and settles into a prone position. Burke lies beside him with binoculars that are completely useless. The fog is absolute. It's 0615. "What are we doing?" Burke asks. "Waiting." "For what?" "For them to talk. The NVA come at 0620. Hathcock hears them before Burke does. Voices coordinating, trying to maintain formation in 0 visibility. At least 20 men, maybe more, moving in a sweep line from west to east. They're calling out to each other every 30 seconds, maintaining contact, standard tactics. They're trying to flush the American patrol out, and they're walking directly into Hathcock's field of fire. What happens next violates every principle of Marine Corps marksmanship. Hathcock begins firing on pure acoustic targeting. Single shots, bolt-action precision, each round placed where an enemy voice was 2 seconds earlier. He doesn't aim at what he sees because he sees nothing. He aims at where sound tells him a human body must be. First shot. Man down, confusion. Second shot, another hit, panic spreading. Third shot, fourth, fifth. The NVA break formation and scatter. Some fire back, but they're shooting at muzzle flash and echoes, not at actual targets. Their return fire goes wide and high. Hathcock goes silent, lets them waste ammunition on nothing. He's counting his rounds. 7 fired, 53 remaining. Burke is watching him with something between horror and awe. The radio squawks. An NVA voice, tense, reporting contact with superior force, requesting immediate support. Hathcock smiles grimly. They think they're facing a platoon. One rifle. Cold judgment. That's all it took to convince them they're outnumbered. At 6:32, through the fog and the sound of scattered enemy movement, Hathcock hears something different. American voices, low, desperate, trying to be quiet and failing. English, Marine slang, someone whispering about ammunition counts. Echo 2-1, east of his position, 300 meters, maybe less, and they're surrounded. Hathcock makes a decision that could get him court-martialed. He keys the captured NVA radio and speaks in broken, heavily accented Vietnamese. All units withdraw to Rally Point Alpha. Enemy reinforcements approaching from south. Large force. It's a guess. A bluff built on half-understood radio protocol and desperation. The radio crackles with confused acknowledgement. 30 seconds later, Hathcock hears the NVA pulling back, calling to each other, regrouping 200 meters west. They bought it. Burke stares at him. Did you just get ready to move? They low-crawl east through the fog, navigating by compass and sound. Hathcock carries cold judgment cradled in his arms, keeping the scope covered. The rifle is hand-fitted to him. He knows its balance, its weight, the exact feel of its trigger. In his hands, it's not just a weapon, it's an extension of his senses, his will. Without it, he's just another Marine. With it, he's white feather. They find Echo 2-1 at 07:05. 9 Marines pinned in a dry creek bed. 2 badly wounded, 1 unconscious, maybe 40 rounds of ammunition left between them. Lieutenant Vasquez almost shoots Hathcock when he appears out of the fog like a ghost. The lieutenant is 23 years old, 6 weeks in country, running on adrenaline and caffeine. His hands are shaking. "White feather," he whispers. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Getting you out." Hathcock sets up cold judgment on the creek bank. The NVA are regrouping. He can hear squad leaders shouting orders through the fog, angry now, suspicious. They know something isn't right. They're preparing for a final push. Hathcock fires twice. Both hits, pure sound work. The NVA go to ground again. It buys them 3 minutes. "Form up!" Hathcock tells Vasquez. "Staggered column, wounded in the middle. Move on my signal." "We can't navigate in this." "I can." Vasquez looks at him for a long moment. Hathcock has a reputation in country. White feather. 93 confirmed kills. Unconfirmed number probably twice that. The sniper who does impossible things with a rifle nobody else wants to touch. If anyone can walk them out blind, it's him. "All right," Vasquez says. "Your show." Hathcock takes point. Burke takes rear security. They move out at 07:20, 10 Marines and 1 rifle against an enemy they can't see. Every 200 meters, Hathcock stops and fires back into the fog. Single precision shots, always hitting, always invisible. The NVA follow but stay cautious. They've lost count of how many men Hathcock has killed. They don't understand what's hunting them. That's the edge. Fear multiplies in fog. But at 07:25, moving through a bamboo thicket, Hathcock hears something that stops him cold. A young voice, Vietnamese, crying, calling for his mother, wounded, dying 20 meters south, maybe 18 years old, maybe younger. 1 round would end it. 1 mercy shot. But Hathcock has 9 Marines to save, and ammunition is finite. He has 47 rounds left. He doesn't know how many more contacts they'll face before they reach the LZ. Cold judgment. The rifle demands cold judgment. Hathcock keeps walking. Burke behind him heard it too. Neither speaks. The voice fades into the fog behind them. Hathcock's hand tightens on the rifle stock. The 7 notches press against his palm. He keeps walking. Do you think you'd trust the official methods, or trust what your own hands and eyes tell you works? Comment which side you'd choose, and share this episode with someone who loves real human stories from history. The fog begins to lift at 8:10, but not fast enough. Hathcock has the patrol moving southeast toward the primary LZ, a clearing 4 clicks from their current position where Hueys can land if visibility improves. The wounded Marines are slowing them down. One has a sucking chest wound, treated as well as possible with a field dressing. The other took shrapnel from a Chicom grenade and can barely walk. The unconscious one is being carried on an improvised litter made from ponchos and bamboo poles. At 08:15, the NVA make their move. They've figured out the patrol's direction and are trying to cut them off. Hathcock hears movement ahead, and to the right, at least a squad, maybe more, moving fast to intercept. He signals halt, moves forward alone to scout. 20 meters ahead, he can just make out shadows in the thinning fog. 7 men, maybe 8, setting up a hasty ambush across the trail. Hathcock settles into position behind a fallen log. Cold judgment comes up. Through the unearthly scope, he can now see shapes, not clear, not clean, but better than nothing. Range, maybe 60 meters. He identifies the machine gunner first. Always take out the crew-served weapons first. He centers the crosshairs on the man's chest, exhales, fires. The gunner drops. Before the others can react, Hathcock works the bolt and fires again. Second man down. The ambush collapses. The NVA scatter, firing wildly. Hathcock pulls back and brings the patrol through on a flanking route, using terrain he remembers from months ago. They're moving faster now, almost running, the wounded grimacing with pain, but staying quiet. Echo Marines. They know the drill. Nobody talks. Nobody complains. They just move. By 0835, they've covered 3 clicks, 1 more to go. The fog is breaking up in patches now. Hathcock can see maybe 50 meters in some directions, 10 in others. The Hueys are inbound. He can hear them in the distance, distinctive whop-whop-whop of rotor blades. Burke is on the radio, talking to flight lead, guiding them in with smoke grenades. The NVA make one last attempt at E0838, a final blocking force, dug in at the edge of the LZ. They're desperate now. They've lost face, lost men, lost a patrol they had surrounded. Hathcock can see them clearly now through breaks in the fog. He counts 12 men, entrenched, with good fields of fire across the only approach to the landing zone. Vasquez looks at Hathcock. The lieutenant's face is grey with exhaustion and stress. We can't assault that. Not with wounded. Don't need to, Hathcock says. He finds a position with elevation. A small rise 30 meters from the NVA positions. He settles into prone. Cold judgment on bipod. Burke beside him with the spotting scope. This is different from the fog work. This is what Hathcock was trained for. Visual acquisition, range estimation, wind call, precise, methodical, surgical elimination of targets. He fires 14 times in 3 minutes. 14 shots, 12 hits. The 2 misses are because targets moved at the last instant. The NVA position collapses. The survivors run. Hathcock doesn't chase them. He's done enough killing for one morning. The Hueys land at 0843. Echo 21 loads up, wounded first, then the others. Vasquez grabs Hathcock's arm as he's boarding. I don't know what the hell you just did, but you saved 9 lives. Hathcock doesn't respond. He's thinking about the boy crying for his mother in the bamboo thicket. He's thinking about 47 rounds fired, 31 confirmed hits, most of them pure acoustic work in 0 visibility. He's thinking about how cold judgment feels in his hands right now, hot from firing, the wood stock warm, the metal parts slick with condensation. The rifle saved them, but rifles don't feel regret. Back at the firebase at 9:20, Captain Morrison is waiting. Morrison is career infantry, 20 years in, a believer in doctrine and proper procedure. He does not like snipers operating independently. He especially does not like Hathcock, who breaks more rules than any Marine he's ever commanded. Staff Sergeant, Morrison says flatly, you were ordered to wait for visibility. Yes, sir. You disobeyed that order and took it upon yourself to conduct a solo rescue operation. 2-man team, sir. Lance Corporal Burke accompanied me. Morrison's jaw tightens. Behind him, Vasquez and his Marines are being checked by corpsmen. They're alive, all 9. No additional casualties. Morrison knows this. The whole firebase knows this. But doctrine is doctrine, and Hathcock made him look like a fool. We'll discuss this in my hooch at 1100 hours, Morrison says. Bring your rifle. Hathcock knows what that means. Morrison wants to inspect cold judgment, look for modifications that might violate regulations. The free-floated barrel is technically unauthorized. The custom trigger work was done by a civilian armorer, not a Marine armorer. The unearthed scope isn't standard issue. If Morrison wants to make an example of him, he has grounds. At 10:45, Hathcock is sitting outside Morrison's hooch with cold judgment broken down on a poncho, cleaning each component methodically. The rifle needs it after firing in heavy humidity. The barrel is fouled with powder residue. The bolt needs oil. The scope rings need checking for tightness. This is the ritual. Shoot, clean, prepare. The rifle is nothing without maintenance. Burke sits down beside him. "Gunny, Morrison's going to try to take your rifle." "I know. That's bullshit. You just saved 9 guys." "Doesn't matter. Rules are rules." Burke watches him work for a moment. Then quietly, "You could have helped that kid. The wounded NVA. You heard him, same as me." Hathcock's hands stop moving. He looks at Burke for the first time. "We had 47 rounds and 9 Marines to save. What would you have done?" Burke doesn't answer. There's no good answer. That's the whole problem. Hathcock goes back to cleaning the rifle. Cold judgment. The name feels heavier now. The meeting in Morrison's hooch goes exactly as Hathcock expects. Morrison sits behind a field desk made from ammo crates, studying cold judgment with the expression of a man examining a crime scene. He picks up the unearthed scope, turns it over in his hands, reads the serial number. "This scope costs $450, Morrison says. "Where'd you get that kind of money?" "Saved it, sir. Took 8 months. "And this trigger work?" "Armorer in Da Nang. Civilian contractor. He used to build competition rifles before the war." Morrison sets the scope down carefully. He's building a case. Unauthorized modifications, non-standard equipment, violation of uniformity regulations, conduct unbecoming. The paperwork is already half written in his head. The regulation Marine sniper rifle is the Winchester Model 70, Morrison says. Standard military issue, inspected, approved, and uniform across all operational units. "You know why we have standards, Staff Sergeant. So everyone's equipment is predictable and maintainable, sir." "Exactly. And your rifle is neither. It's a custom job that only you can maintain and only you can shoot effectively. What happens if you get hit? What happens if another sniper needs to pick up this weapon and use it? Won't shoot the same for anyone else, sir. Rifles fitted to me. That's my point." Morrison leans forward. "You've created a dependency. You're not following the system. You're making yourself irrelevant to it. That's not how the Marine Corps works." Hathcock doesn't argue. He knows Morrison isn't wrong about the doctrine, just wrong about what matters. The doctrine says every weapon should be interchangeable, every Marine replaceable. But killing at 100 yards isn't interchangeable. Shooting blind in fog isn't interchangeable. Some things require mastery, and mastery requires tools that fit. Before Morrison can continue, Lieutenant Vasquez knocks and enters without waiting for permission. He's cleaned up, shaved, looks almost human again. But there's something in his eyes that wasn't there yesterday. "Sir," Vasquez says, "I need to make a statement for the record." Morrison looks annoyed. "This isn't the time, Lieutenant." "With respect, sir, it is." Vasquez pulls a small notebook from his pocket. "At 7:20 hours this morning, in zero visibility conditions, Staff Sergeant Hathcock successfully navigated my patrol 4 kilometers through hostile territory using acoustic targeting and terrain memory. He engaged enemy forces multiple times using non-visual fire control and eliminated hostile positions that would have prevented our extraction. 9 Marines are alive because of his actions and because of that rifle." Morrison's face hardens. "I'm aware of what happened." "I don't think you are, sir." Vasquez's voice stays respectful, but his words cut. "I've been trained in standard Marine Corps small unit tactics. I've been taught regulation doctrine. This morning, regulation doctrine would have killed my entire patrol." Staff Sergeant Hathcock violated every standard procedure to save us, and he did it with a rifle you're about to confiscate for being non-standard. Lieutenant, that's enough. No, sir, it's not. Vasquez sets his notebook on Morrison's desk. I'm writing this up as a formal after-action report. I'm recommending Staff Sergeant Hathcock for the Navy Cross, and I'm stating for the record that any action taken against him or his equipment would be detrimental to Marine Corps combat effectiveness. Silence. Morrison stares at Vasquez. Vasquez stares back. Hathcock sits very still, watching both of them. Finally, Morrison speaks, very quietly. Get out of my hooch, Lieutenant. Vasquez leaves. Morrison picks up Cold Judgment stock, runs his thumb over the 7 notches. How many, he asks. Confirmed or unconfirmed? Confirmed. 93 before today. With this morning, I'd estimate another 12 to 15. Jesus Christ. Morrison sets the rifle down. He looks tired, suddenly older. You know what's going to happen, don't you? Some colonel or general is going to hear about this. They're going to want to study what you did. They're going to write it up as a new doctrine. Acoustic targeting and reduced visibility. It'll be in the training manuals. Maybe, Hathcock says. And then, every sniper in the Corps is going to try it. And most of them are going to fail, because they're not you, and they don't have 7 months of terrain memory, and they haven't made 93 kills with a rifle they built themselves. Hathcock nods slowly. This is the core of it. Morrison understands more than he's been letting on. So what happens? Hathcock asks. Morrison is quiet for a long moment. Then he pushes Cold Judgment across the desk. You keep your rifle. You keep doing what you do. But understand something, Staff Sergeant. The day you get killed, or the day you rotate out, the doctrine stays and you leave. And men are going to die trying to do what you did, because doctrine can't replace experience. That's on you. It's not a compliment. It's not even approval. It's just recognition of an uncomfortable truth. Hathcock reassembles the rifle without speaking, each piece clicking into place with familiar precision. When he's done, he stands. Permission to return to duties, sir. Granted. And Staff Sergeant? Morrison says as Hathcock reaches the door. Next time, wait for orders. Yes, sir. They both know he won't. 3 days later, a full colonel arrives from Da Nang with a technical team. Colonel Bradley, Marine Corps Marksmanship Unit, career shooter who once held the long-range rifle record at Camp Perry. He's heard about the fog rescue and he wants details, specifics, numbers. They set up in an empty tent with maps and diagrams. Hathcock walks them through the entire operation, hour by hour, shot by shot. The technical team takes notes, asks questions, measures distances on maps. They want to understand the methodology. How do you shoot what you can't see? You don't shoot what you can't see, Hathcock explains. You shoot where you know the target has to be, based on sound, terrain, and experience. But how do you know? One of the technical officers asks. You listen. Human voices reflect off terrain features differently than they reflect off open ground. You hear where the hills are, where the ravines are, where the trees are, and you already know the terrain from previous patrols, so you're matching what you hear to what you've seen. Bradley picks up Cold Judgment, examines it closely. He's shot enough rifles to recognize quality work. This trigger is beautiful, he says. 2 pounds? 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And the barrel work? Free-floated, bedded with epoxy. Armourer in Da Nang named Hayes did it. He builds match rifles. Bradley cycles the bolt, feels the smoothness. He looks through the inertial scope, adjusts the focus. How many rounds through this barrel? About 4,000. And it still shoots? Half-minute groups at 200 yards, 3/4 minute at 400. Bradley sets the rifle down carefully, like it's something precious and dangerous at the same time. Staff Sergeant, I'm going to be direct. The Marine Corps wants to document your technique. We want to incorporate acoustic targeting into sniper training. But there's a problem. Sir? You're the only one who's done it successfully in combat. We can't write doctrine based on one operator's unique capabilities. We need replicable results. Here it is. The moment Hathcock has been dreading. They want to systematize what he does, make it teachable, turn instinct into doctrine. But how do you teach 7 months of terrain memory? How do you teach the ability to translate sound into distance and position? How do you teach someone to make cold decisions when they hear a boy crying for his mother? I can share the technical process, Hathcock says carefully, but I can't guarantee results. That's not acceptable, one of the technical officers says. If we're going to train this, we need reproducible methodology. Then you can't train it, Hathcock says flatly. Not really. You can teach the basics, sound propagation, terrain analysis, compass work, but the part that matters, the part that let me hit 31 out of 47 shots blind, that's experience, sir. That's not doctrine. Silence in the tent. Bradley studies Hathcock for a long moment. How many times did you hear wounded enemy and not shoot? Bradley asks suddenly. The question catches Hathcock off guard. His face doesn't change, but something in his eyes does. Sir, it's in Lieutenant Vasquez's report. He heard you bypass a wounded NVA soldier who was calling for help. You didn't fire. Why? The technical officers look uncomfortable. This isn't the kind of detail they care about. But Bradley is watching Hathcock with the eyes of someone who's made hard calls himself. 47 rounds, Hathcock says quietly. 9 Marines. Unknown number of enemy between us and the LZ. That's the math, sir. Cold judgment. Cold judgment, Bradley repeats. That's what they call your rifle. Yes, sir, because it never hesitates. Because I can't afford to, Hathcock says. The rifle doesn't care about wounded enemies or mercy shots. It just does what it's designed to do. But I remember every one. Bradley nods slowly. He understands what the technical team doesn't. You can teach marksmanship, you can teach tactics, but you can't teach someone how to live with the weight of perfect execution. We're going to write this up anyway, Bradley says. We're going to call it Reduced Visibility Acoustic Targeting, and we're going to add it to the Advanced Sniper syllabus. We're going to use your rifle as the baseline for future modifications to the Model 70. And we're going to put your name on the doctrine, which means forever after, Marines are going to try to do what you did. And some of them will die trying, Hathcock says. Yes, Bradley picks up cold judgment one more time. But some of them will succeed, and patrols will get saved, and maybe years from now what you did in that fog will keep other Marines alive. That's what doctrine is, Staff Sergeant. It's the collected wisdom of people like you, written in blood and preserved in training. It's never perfect, and it costs lives, but it's all we have. Hathcock takes the rifle back. The stock is warm from Bradley's hands. The 7 notches are hidden, but he feels them anyway. One more thing, Bradley says. We're sending an armorer to Quantico to replicate Hayes's work. Every Marine sniper is going to get a free floated barrel and a custom trigger. Your rifle becomes the standard. Hathcock doesn't know how to feel about that. Part of him is proud. Part of him knows that cold judgment, his cold judgment, can never be replicated. The rifle fits him the way a man's shadow fits. You can make copies, but they won't be the same. Understood, sir. After they leave, Burke finds him in the armory, breaking down the rifle again for cleaning, even though it's already clean. They're gonna make you famous, Gunny. Don't want to be famous. Want to do my job and go home. You saved 9 guys. That's something. Yeah. Hathcock runs a patch through the barrel, smells the solvent, and left one to die. That's something too. Burke doesn't have an answer for that. Nobody does. The fog rescue becomes legend fast. By December, every sniper in I Corps has heard the story. White Feather shooting blind. 31 hits, 9 Marines saved. The numbers get repeated like a litany. Some believe it. Some think it's bullshit. All of them try to understand how it's possible. Hathcock doesn't talk about it. He goes back to work. The war doesn't pause for legends. He makes 3 more confirmed kills in December, 4 in January. Cold judgment keeps doing what it's designed to do, but something has changed. Every time he shoots now, he thinks about doctrine. Every time he lines up a target through the unertal scope, he wonders if some future Marine will try to repeat this shot because it's in a training manual somewhere. The responsibility weighs on him differently than it did before. In February 1968, he gets a letter from Hayes, the armourer in Da Nang, who did the barrel work. Hayes writes that he's been contracted by the Marine Corps to produce free-float bedding systems for the Model 70 sniper rifles. They're calling it the White Feather modification. Hayes sounds proud. Hathcock reads the letter twice and then files it away. He doesn't know how to explain that having something named after you feels less like an honor and more like a marker on a grave that hasn't been dug yet. Burke rotates home in March. His replacement is a lance corporal named Ramirez, who's heard all the stories and believes maybe half of them. The kid is eager, competent, asks good questions. Hathcock teaches him what he can, how to read terrain, how to judge wind, how to maintain cold judgment's specific quirks. But he doesn't teach the fog work. How could he? You can't teach someone to shoot what they can't see. You can only put them in situations where they have no choice but to try. April 1968. Hill, 55. Hathcock is dug in at dawn, overlooking a supply route the NVA use at night. Ramirez is beside him with the spotting scope. They've been in position for 6 hours, nothing happening. Then movement at 900 meters. Hathcock sees it through the unertal. 4 men, carrying supplies, standard target. He settles into position, finger on trigger. Then he notices something. One of the 4 men is wounded, being helped by the others. Bandage on his leg, moving slowly. Not a combatant. Not in that moment. Just someone trying to get home. Hathcock's finger stays on the trigger. Cold judgment. The rifle wants the shot. The doctrine says take the shot. Enemy logistics, legitimate target 900 meters is within capability. He's made harder shots. The war wants the shot. But Hathcock thinks about the boy crying for his mother in the fog, the one he left to die because ammunition was finite and mission was paramount. Cold judgment then. What about now? He takes his finger off the trigger. Gunny? Ramirez whispers. You got the shot. I know. So we let this one go. Ramirez looks confused. Hathcock doesn't explain. He just watches the 4 men disappear into the tree line. One mercy, one decision to not shoot. It doesn't balance the equation, nothing ever will, but it's something. Cold judgment doesn't care. The rifle never cares. But the man holding it has to live with every decision, and that's the weight doctrine can't touch. Hathcock rotates out in May 1968. He carries cold judgment all the way back to California, keeps it for years in a gun safe, cleans it religiously even though he never shoots it again. The Marine Corps wants to put it in a museum. He refuses. It's not a trophy. It's a tool, and tools shouldn't be worshipped. Decades later at Quantico, Marine snipers learn the white feather fog doctrine in advanced training. They study acoustic targeting, terrain memorization, reduced visibility fire control. The instructors are honest. This is theory. This is possibility. This requires experience we can't teach you in a classroom. Some of you will never need this. Some of you will need it and won't be ready. That's the nature of war. The Remington Model 700 becomes the standard Marine sniper rifle in 1966, but Hathcock's specific modifications, the free float bedding, the custom trigger work, the unertal scope mounting, become doctrine in 1969. Every Marine sniper after that gets a rifle built to White Feather's specifications. They don't know it's based on one man's obsessive quest for precision. They just know it shoots better than anything else. In 1999, a Marine historian named Kuhlman interviews Hathcock for an oral history project. The old sniper is 70 years old now, sick with multiple sclerosis, can barely walk, but his memory is sharp. What do you want people to know about the fog rescue? Kuhlman asks. Hathcock is quiet for a long time. Then, I want them to know it worked because I knew the terrain, because I'd been there before. Because I had a rifle I'd spent months fitting to me. Because I had 9 Marines who trusted me even when it didn't make sense. And because I got lucky, doctrine can't give you any of that, so you don't think it should be taught. I didn't say that. Hathcock looks out the window of his house in Virginia, seeing something that isn't there. I think you have to teach it, even knowing most people won't be able to do it. Because the one time someone can do it, 9 guys go home. That's worth all the failures. What about the cost? Kuhlman asks gently. The personal cost? Hathcock touches his arm, where a phantom rifle stock would rest. Cold judgment, he says quietly. The rifle doesn't remember, but I do. Every shot, every decision, every voice I heard in the fog. That's the cost. You can teach marksmanship. You can teach tactics. But you can't teach someone how to carry it afterward. That part, everyone learns alone. Cold judgment still sits in Hathcock's gun safe when he dies in 1999. His family eventually donates it to the Marine Corps Museum, where it sits behind glass with a small plaque. Remington Model 700, 30-06, used by Gunnery Sergeant Carlos N. Hathcock II, USMC, Vietnam, 1966-1968, 93 confirmed kills, recipient of the Silver Star. The plaque doesn't mention the fog, doesn't mention the 47 rounds, or the 31 hits, or the 9 Marines saved, doesn't mention the boy who cried for his mother. Those details live in after-action reports and oral histories and the memories of men who were there. But if you look closely at the rifle stock, you can see 7 small notches hand-cut in a place the museum lighting doesn't quite reach. Those notches tell a different story than the plaque. They tell the story of cold judgment, of precision without mercy, of a tool that did exactly what it was designed to do every single time. The rifle never hesitated. The rifle never doubted. The rifle never remembered. Carlos Hathcock remembered everything. If this story reminded you that sometimes the best solutions come from those willing to break the rules, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to revisit history with us in the next story.